Welcome to the 5th video in the series based on my blog, Singing with Many Voices. Today we're going to continue looking at some of my very favorite quotes and sayings by some of my very favorite internationally recognized singers and pedagogues. And today we're going to focus on the art of the singer's breath and what some of these great singers and pedagogues have to say about it. Young singers are so often confused, I know I was, as to what exactly is the singer's breath. What does it mean? Is it complex? What do I need to do? There have been many pedagogical books written and still being written on the subject. Sometimes they're very complex and can cause some kind of confusion until we get the ideas straightened out. The result is that sometimes singers focus on the mechanical aspect of breathing without taking note of or including the musical element in this equation. It is a two-way street. Of course, the singer's breath is highly developed as a skill, but it uses the breath mechanism given to all of us by Mother Nature. Inhalation muscles and exhalation muscles, upper body, lower body. The Italian school of classical singing, which is what we call the bel canto school, uses one word to describe this balancing act between inhalation muscles and exhalation muscles. That word is appoggiare. Translated to English, it means to support or to lean on. Support for me doesn't tell the whole story. It often results in a kind of a muscular rigidity in some part of your body, more effort than energy. The word or the phrase to lean on is a more complete story. It describes the balancing act between two forces. Two forces guided by the demands of the music. Classical repertoire, of course, demands that the breathing mechanism be developed to its full potential allowed by Mother Nature. It is a natural thing that every human being could do. Politicians, orators, classical actors, they develop it to a certain extent. For the classical vocal repertoire, especially opera, it is developed to its highest degree. Today we're going to look at some sayings. They are not vocalises, they're not technical tools. They are concepts that help us to develop this skill. They describe physical sensations that we feel when we develop balanced breath of the classical singing, of the classical singer. The first few quotes are quite general. The first one is by Enrico Caruso. Quote, "The art of breathing once acquired, the student has taken a considerable step on the road to beautiful singing." End quote. When we observe the finest of singers, YouTube, real life, we never see them inhale, exhale. Their upper torso is always open, sturdy, before, during, and after they're singing. There's no sense of effort. There's a lot of energy. The next one is by Luisa Tetrazzini, whom we have met before in this video. She was, of course, one of the great bel canto singers of the late 19th and early 20th century. Quote, "Breath management is simply a balanced coordination between the inhale and the exhale muscles in our torso. This skill, developed by awareness of the phrase to be sung, its length, its range, its dynamic markings, this knowledge is an integral part of balancing the breath. The singer's breath cycle can be broken down into 4 or 5 elements. Inhalation, suspension, where we feel the air in our body, the onset of the first tone, singing through the phrase, and the offset of the first tone, of the last tone, forgive me. The well-trained singer treats these elements as one smooth, integrated act. Let's look at inhalation. I'm going to quote from Thomas Hampson, we all know is one of our great, great American singers, and actually a wonderful pedagogue. Many of you have watched his master classes, and they are truly wonderful. Quote, "Inhalation is the upbeat to every phrase." End of quote. When we breathe with the rhythm of the music, we are making the inhalation part of the phrase to be sung. We are already singing it mentally when we inhale, making the actual sound smooth and homeopathic. From Barbara Hahn, a very highly respected American voice teacher, whose master classes I have seen several times, and I have worked with some of her singers. I hold her in very high esteem. Quote, "Breath is energy, not weight." End of quote. Often the word "to support" causes rigidity in the body. We might push the air up, or we may push down, but there's too much effort in it. Breath is energy, fuel, that we learn how to spend in order to meet the demands of the music. Each phrase has its own demands. Another great voice teacher, a French-Canadian, Lucille Evans, who had a wonderful career teaching at Indiana University and Cleveland Conservatory, and she was my last teacher, used to say, quote, "The slower you take the air in, the longer it will last." End of quote. A conscious low breath taken rhythmically sets up the entire instrument. The air settles in our torso and provides the cushion upon which the voice will ride to the end of the phrase. Angel Blue, one of our great singers today, did a master class that I watched from Common Garden. Her quote is, "Imagine you inhale from the bottom of your lungs up, just as water, when poured into a glass, fills up from the bottom. This concept ensures that our inhaled breath will immediately reach the lowest point in our lungs. It will be a complete breath, without effort." We're going to now look at the first onset of tone. Very often, a singer feels insecure, I know I did, about the first tone. Will it sound? Will it be too breathy? Will it be throaty? Will it be in tune? These next quotes address this part of our singing. Matilda Marchesi, whom we've talked about before, perhaps the greatest teacher of the Italian school of singing, late 19th century, early 20th, wrote, "When onsetting a first tone, have the sensation of inhaling, not exhaling." End quote. That's a mental concept turned into a physical one. It balances the amount of air used to initiate or to spark the first tone. Not too much breath, not too little breath, just right. Now we come to Manuel Garcia II. He is considered the father of modern vocal pedagogy. He, as we all know, developed the first laryngoscope where man could see the functioning of the vocal cords in a human body, a live human body. His quote is, "In the balanced onset lies the germ of all good vocalism. All sense of shock is avoided." End quote. The preparation and execution of that first tone is perhaps the most important concept and skill that we should develop. Nico Castell, our next writer, who was an incredible diction coach, and his great series of books on diction in all languages in which we sing are in most of the major conservatories around the world. He wrote this, and I love it. Quote, "Breathe into the first vowel." This mental concept means that I don't have to place that vowel when I start to sing. It's already there. So that will assure a smooth, immediate, in-tune onset coming right out of the inhalation. Following on the heels of that quote, which I think is an important one, comes one from Tom Hampson. Quote, "No beautiful first tone of a phrase is ever an accident." Unquote. When the first tone is heard in the singer's ear as he inhales, there will be no sensation of attacking a note or struggling with it. It will contact immediately with great balance. Now we come back to Marchesi. Obviously, I respect her greatly. Quote, "With the balanced onset, the singer feels no air is being expelled, yet the air is flowing." End of quote. This is the goal, I believe, of every classical singer. It takes practice, takes patience, but it is not complex. We're going to quote Manuel Garcia II again. Quote, "There is no physical effort or sensation in the larynx with the balanced onset of tone." End of quote. All efforts are kept away from the throat. The isometric energy is in the torso. My two favorite sayings on this very subject of onset. One from Richard Miller, who of course wrote the great book Sensations of Singing, which is considered the Bible of vocal pedagogy in our time. Quote, "Always sing on the gesture of inhalation." This is one of the most important ideas to have. And the last one on this subject is by our beloved Luciano Pavarotti. Quote, "For each phrase, feel the air settle an instant before beginning your phrase." So beautifully said, so simply said. Now we're going to talk about singing through that phrase, the legato energy. We're going back to Matilda Marchesi. Quote, "Lean a little into that first tone for each phrase." Unquote. That slight lean on the first note will set the phrase on its pathway. The breath is under our dynamic control, which we call legato energy. It has life in it. From Richard Miller again, quote, "Maintain a sense of inhaling as you sing through each phrase." End quote. The continuation of the inhale, onset, and maintaining it through the phrase gives us the energy we need to fulfill the demands of that phrase. Tetrazzini again, quote, "As long as the tone lasts, the gentle, uninterrupted flow of the breath must continue under it." End of quote. This is singing on the breath, a phrase you hear in so many studios, and quite right. We sing on the breath, not with the breath. It is a perfect way to avoid controlling the breath statically, but rather dynamically. Benita Valente, a wonderful American singer now teaching at Temple University, quote, "Keep your mind ahead of the voice. This concept assures that the breath energy will be dynamic, smooth, and the phrase legato because we have seen it before we've done it." And from Giovanni Battista Lamperti, a wonderful pedagogue from, again, late 19th, early 20th century, there's a beautiful collection of his phrases, of his maxims. It's a little tiny book called Vocal Wisdom, full of imagery, wonderful thoughts about what we're talking about today. Quote, "The voice rides like a ship on top of the wave, under." The breath is what is under the voice. This image in our inner eye guides and describes the feeling, again, of being on a cushion of breath. So the old maxim is true, singing on the breath. That's really what it feels like. Let's talk about the offset of the tone. That's one of the most challenging things we do. And it's something we have to learn how to do, but it is done through the phrasing, so that the last note will be poised, noiseless, and without a sense of us being out of breath. From Richard Miller again, "Maintain the posture of inhalation to the end of the phrase. This perfectly describes the physical sensation from one note through the others to the last note of each phrase, guided by the gesture of each phrase." Thomas Hemsley, who wrote a great book, Singing and Imagination, I've gone through 3 copies of it, quote, "Mentally see the end of the phrase as you inhale. The body obeys the mind. The result, the breath will spin with legato energy until you get to where you have to go." Domingo said it's the simplest way of all. Quote, "Take a complete inhalation. Feel it settle. Initiate that first spark of tone right there and continue going away from your body till the end of the phrase. In, down, out. What could be simpler? The singer's breath is at the service of the music." As you see, these images and concepts that make up our craft and the art of the singer's breath, it's all based on balance, one of the essential goals of classical singing. There are, of course, many, many ways that you and your teacher will find these concepts and develop them to reach your goal. But having the goal is where you start. All of these quotes will be on the screen for you to look at again or to jot down. So until we meet next time, go out there and make beautiful music.